Welkom bij deze podcast. Het is een podcast waar ik echt naar uitgekeken heb. Uitgekeken heb omdat het iemand is die ik enorm bewonder in haar werk. Maar ook de continuïteit die ze geeft. Dat al jarenlang het op een heel hoog niveau geleverd wordt. Verrassend, vernieuwend, maar toch een handtekening. Nou, dat is iets wat niet vanzelfsprekend is. Dat is iets wat vraagt om vragen. We willen weten, waar komt ze vandaan? We hebben het over Antoinette Beenders. Welkom.
Hi, how are you?
Ja, hartstikke goed. Ik vind het leuk. Ik mag met jou Nederlands praten. We hebben afgesproken dat je in het Engels de vragen beantwoordt. Daar voel je je wat comfortabeler bij. En we zullen zorgen dat de ondertitelingen zorgt dat iedereen het gaat begrijpen die het ziet. En wanneer ze het beluisteren, ja, dan moeten ze maar een woordje Engels kunnen of internationaal een woordje Nederlands kunnen. Daar hebben we geen ondertitelingen voor. Maar dat gaat helemaal goed komen. Maar superleuk dat je me te woord wil staan. Ik heb begrepen dat je op dit moment bent daar waar mijn held vroeger woonde, Minneapolis. Klopt dat?
That's right, yeah.
Ja, yeah. Prins, die heeft daar zijn studio.
Prince, yeah, that's the first thing I found out about Minneapolis. And by the way, for the viewers or listeners, yes, I am 100% Dutch, but I have left Holland in 1987. So I can speak Dutch, but like a 20-year-old and not like a 55-year-old. So I prefer to speak in English. My whole career practically has been in English. And as we're going to be talking about hair and my career, I thought it'd be a bit more, well, it's easier for me to speak in English now than it is in Dutch, dare I say it. I also now am an American person. I do have a Dutch passport and an American passport, so I feel in ode to my new country I should speak in English.
Nou, cool. De eerste vraag die ik je wil stellen is eigenlijk het volgende. Wanneer was de allereerste keer dat je in contact kwam met het kappersvak?
The very first time, I would say, I come from a family with very thin hair, as you can tell. And my mother used to go to have a hair done every Saturday at Coiffure in Zandpoort. And when I was 12, I used to, I was really intrigued by textures and hair. And my father is a photographer, so I was in the studio since I was 2 years old. So I started playing with hair. My mom saw that. She said, why don't you see if you can be a Saturday girl? So as she was a very, good client of them, they kind of let me in. And here I was, 14 years old, making tea and coffee at the Ropetom in Zandpoort, which I did for like a good a year or something. And then I realized that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do hair. So I went to the Dutch kapperschool.
Okay.
That was an interesting situation.
Dat was in Haarlem of in Amsterdam? Waar heb je gezeten?
Haarlem.
In Haarlem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Haarlem. But it was the time, where they used to do a lot of setting, finger waves, and I was so not interested in that. I was like, I want to cut hair, I want to tint, I want to color, I want to do stuff. And they were like, no, you have to do this according to the curriculum. Mm-hmm. And if you pass your test, then you can move on. I said, okay, I'll get this done and I'm out of here. And I did. And they said, oh, we'll see you coming back a bit later. And I'm like, I'm never coming back. Never. I really did not like the kapperschool.
Hoe oud was je toen?
I think I was 16.
Okay, heel vroeg al.
16, I was very young because I did the MAVO. And then as soon as I was, because I really hated going to school, because I knew I was very much a hands-on person, still am today. I like to learn everything myself. I'm not very good in being told what to do. So to school, that's a disaster. But I'm very quick. I'm a very fast learner. So I ended up, going straight to the. Oh, actually, I used to go on Mondays to the kapperschool, and then I think I went still to. Mondays I used to go to school, I think, and then still do some other stuff. I can't remember, or work in the salon. It was like this 1 day a week thing, of what I remember. It was a very long time ago.
So mix tussen leren en school, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And my boyfriend at the time was a hairdresser, and he was very interested in English hairdressers. So he had gone to a course in London of jingles at the time in the 80s. And he completely instilled this kind of enthusiasm in me. And then he's the one who discovered Trevor Sorbie, and he dragged me to a Trevor Sorbie seminar when I think it was 18 years old in Den Haag, or Den Haag.
Yeah.
So I went to see them, and it was his team, and I was just so blown away. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. I knew I wanted to make a career.
Ja.
I mean, I love doing clients, but I really like to do all the other things. So, and then I saw it for the first time, and I thought, that's what I want to do. So how do I go about that? And then I got in touch with the guy who organized the seminar, and he organized a interview for me with Trevor in London. So I went to London. I didn't speak any English at that time. I think I was 19, and they made me do models and stuff. Well, listen, I was trained very differently than they were trained in London. You know, it was like Sorbie was all very Sassoon derived, and I was kind of, I'd say, a bit more of the French training. You know, like scooping everything up and stuff like that. Whereas Trevor was all like perfect sectioning. You know, I didn't even know what perfect section was at that stage. So I got interviewed, and he said, "Oh, we'll send you a letter. We'll send a letter to your house whether you can have the job or not." And I didn't hear anything. So a week later, I was back in Holland, and I phoned him up. I said, "Hey, I thought you were going to send me a letter." Because I've always had Dutch courage, you see, they call it. And he said, "Oh, you'll have a letter next week." So I got a letter saying, "Thank you, but no thank you." And Trevor's story is because I didn't speak any English. I'm not so sure. I think it was more than that. But anyway, I thought, you know what, Mr. Sorbie, whether you like it or not, I'm going to work for you. I am going to work for you whether you like it or not. And that's very Antoinette Beenders kind of like focus. You know, if I want something, I'm making it happen. So I ended up, I thought I need to move to London. Let's start with learning English. Okay, let's do that. So I moved to London. I literally had one suitcase. Like, I never forget, one suitcase and 50 pounds, English pounds. And I arrived at Heathrow Airport. I managed to stay at a friend of a friend's of a friend's brother. And yeah, it was quite tough. The first year I cried every day. I hated it. I literally, I didn't have a job. I didn't speak English. I was in the middle of London. I mean, it was this crazy, Mark, that I went to the Hairdresser's Journal magazine. I knew that existed, you know. Yeah. And at the back in those days, they had the advertisements for all the jobs. Yeah. So I thought I'll just phone every single one up and get a job, because then I can learn English. Because I knew I can wash hair, I can blow dry, I can do something. So I phoned up, and one guy, I got on the phone, and he said, "Where do you live?" And I said, "In South London." He goes, "Well, this job is really North London." I said, "Well, that's okay. I'll leave early." He said, "You're never going to make it." And I'm like, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Listen, I really appreciate your enthusiasm, but I don't think it's going to happen." And funny enough, 20 years later, this man came up to me and he said, it was me on the phone at that phone call. It was so bizarre. And it makes me emotional now, because it was just like, whoa. But anyway, long story short, there was a salon called Polnath Hair in Covent Garden, and they were looking for people. And I went, Trevor Sorbie's in Covent Garden. I'm going to go to someone in Covent Garden, learn there, and then I just walk past Sorbie every day till, you know, figure it out. So I did. I worked there for 3 months, or 6 months maybe, something like that. I can't quite remember. And they were doing photo shoots for Passion magazine. That was a big magazine in the 90s. Remember the big one?
Yes.
And of course, my dad is a photographer. I've been in the photo studio since I was 2 years old. So I knew how to do hair for pictures, or, you know, at that stage. Mm-hmm. And so they took me to the studio straight away, which is great. And then, again, Hairdresser's Journal, bought it every week. I looked in the magazine, and then there was a job interview for Trevor Sorbie for assistants. And I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go. I know I'm not an assistant, because in Holland at 18, I was a manager. I was like I said, I'm a fast learner. The manager in Holland, who was running the salon, went on holiday, just to go back a second. And she said, "You take care of the salon while I'm away." And while she was away, we doubled the takings. So when she came back, the owner said, "Well, I think you should be running the salon." I'm like, okay. So that was in Haarlem. It was a small salon, but
and you were only 18, 19. You were 19 when you take your suitcase. Oh, je bent 19. Ja. Ik ga automatisch met je Engels praten, maar mijn Engels is echt slecht. Dus ik ga weer over naar Nederlands. Ja. Maar dat je 19 bent. Ik heb een dochter van 22 nu. En ik kan me niet voorstellen. En iedereen is anders natuurlijk. Iedereen is anders. Maar met je 19e het lef hebben, de ballen hebben om je koffer te pakken en je idealen na te streven. Want je wist donders goed wat je wilde. Linksom of rechtsom. Je had een bepaald beeld. Hoe je ouders bijvoorbeeld, die laten hun kind van 19 met een koffer naar Engeland gaan. Dat is ook heel bijzonder.
Ja, heel bijzonder is the right word. My mum didn't want me to go, but my dad said, if you're going to go, you're not coming back for 1 year. You're going to try for 1 year. You can phone me as much as you like and do whatever, but you're staying for 1 year. Because he knew I had to get it out of my system. And of course, I'm quite a determined lady. So, there was no option on going back. There's no way. I was going to stay there. Whatever was going to kill me, and I was going to do it. To prove myself, more than anything. Yeah.
Ja, en dan doorzetten met de communicatie naar Trevor Sorbie toe. Van, joh, luister, het is geen vraag, maar het is gewoon een kwestie van wanneer ik met jou ga werken of bij jou ga werken. Ja, dat is toch een mentaliteit waarvan je kan zeggen dat dat niet heel veel voorkomt. Ik kan het wel heel erg waarderen overigens, hoor.
It's something that I've got in me. It's interesting, as you age and as you get older, I sometimes think back at that young Antoinette and I thought, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be doing what I do today. And I think that's what it takes. I was talking to a Dutch filmmaker the other day, just as crazy about his job as I was in those days. And I think that's what it takes, Yeah, I don't think anyone listening, if you want a full-blown career, like proper, you can have a nice lifestyle, but a proper career, it's not 9 to 5. It's like your life. I missed every wedding of my friends. I've missed everything. Everything personally I've missed. But I had an amazing career and still have. So it's your choice in life.
Ja, aan de ene kant is het, je zit op dat moment, op je 19e, zit je eigenlijk in een soort sneltrein. En je maakt stappen, je maakt sprongen. Maar achteraf gezien denk ik inderdaad precies wat je zegt. Dat als je bepaalde dingen niet had gedaan, dan had je ook niet datgene wat je op dit moment hebt. Dan had je misschien iets anders moois, maar niet datgene waar je op dit moment het fundament van hebt gecreëerd. Van je 19e ben je dus gaan werken bij Trevor Sorbie. En wat was hetgene wat jij als eerste zoiets had van, dit is mijn plekje, dit is waar ik me kan ontwikkelen?
No, I just felt like I came home. I felt like I came home. It's the weirdest thing. And you'll find a lot of people that, if you look at the House of Sorbie, a lot of people that work there are all foreigners. Not that many English. If you look at, and in those days too, Eugene, he was Turkish. I was Dutch. And there were a few more English at that time, but as the time moved on, there's more and more foreign people. But honestly, I felt like I came home. It was hard, man. It was hard. Because my English, they used to take the piss out of me all the time with my English. But hey, listen, I'm the one who's still laughing, Yeah,
absolutely.
You know what I mean? So they could laugh whatever they want. I don't care. Yeah. And also, it kind of, I think it was really good upbringing for me. Because, I was brought up in a very protective, childhood. My parents were, like average Dutch people. My dad had a photography company. My mum was an accountant. Went to school, did dance. Quite average. I was never the kind of, degree type of girl. My brother did all that. He was very clever. But I was very practical. And also, I remember when I was 12 at school, I honestly think I was English before. I know it sounds really ridiculous, but when I got married, my Dutch friends gave me a schrift, a schrift. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in there I wrote things in English when I was 12. That's weird, no?
Dat is heel raar.
I don't know why. I still have it here. It's crazy. So I think I feel most home in England. Not even in America. England is always my home. And still will always be my home. I'm married a Brit.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Sommige mentaliteit past bij je. En in de Engelse mentaliteit is toch anders dan de Nederlandse mentaliteit. Al moet ik je wel zeggen dat ik het zie veranderen in het positieve. Ik vond vroeger Engeland echt de fanatieke kappers die met vernieuwingen kwamen, met veranderingen. Experimenteel of juist heel klassiek. En dat is ook wat ik zo mooi vind aan bedrijven of zaken of salons zoals Sorbie. Die geven en creëren ruimte voor ontwikkeling. En dat klinkt heel simpel, maar dat is iets magisch. Dat als iemand je de ruimte geeft om je te ontwikkelen, dan gaat het altijd gepaard met allerlei regeltjes. En mensen willen toch dat je het op een bepaalde manier dingen gaat leren. Maar het geven van ruimte geeft ontwikkeling. En ik denk dat dat in die fase bij jou ook heel erg belangrijk is geweest. En vooral als je 19, 20 bent en je wordt zo onder handen genomen. Ja, dan zit je en in een bijzonder land, in een bijzondere omgeving. waar je toch hard aangepakt wordt. En je voelt je thuis. Dat zijn dingen die, ja, puzzelstukjes die gewoon kloppen. En ik ben heel erg benieuwd. Ik ben,
I was going to say, you say give it space and everything. I'm not so sure if that was the case. I think it was more a bunch of people that really wanted to make a career. And that energy, that force behind that is very powerful. And Trevor was the kind of guy who, he was tough, man. I tell you, talk about, he was tough. I didn't speak to him for the first 3 months. I was that scared of him. But, and nothing, he will look at a picture and he go, oh, that's crap. Well, don't say that to me. Because I will go, I'm going to show you that it's going to be great. And he knew that. And that's how he pushed my buttons. But he's very a button pusher. And he still does it today. He goes, oh, I know I'm going to piss someone off. Oh, I know. He's like that. And, he's a very interesting character. But, he taught us the basics, the fundamental basics. And I think that is the fundamental thing of being a great hairdresser. And that's where I personally always got stuck in the Netherlands, because I didn't feel we had those fundamentals at that time. I don't know now, because I've been there for years. In America too, we don't have the fundamentals. Not like there is in England. In England, you learn how to hair. I would say the difference is and this is, I'm talking about myself. The difference between the haircut I used to do in Holland and the haircut I did in London was my haircut in Holland looked fantastic. It lasted 4 weeks. The haircut I did in London, looked fantastic, and it lasted 10 weeks. There was much more of a structure to it. And I felt I never had the opportunity to learn that in the Netherlands, because in those days, it wasn't there, You had the kapperschool. Yeah. And you had and then I worked for Ropeton, which was, I think, a little bit more French-derived type of technique. So the English technique was very different. I had to completely relearn everything. I think my first graduated bob took me 12 hours. Maybe 14.
Ja, ik snap het helemaal. Het is in Nederland gelukkig veranderd, Antoinette. Het is de laatste 10 jaar weer heel erg op... Zelfs binnen mijn bedrijf Kinky is het belangrijk dat ze de klassieke fundatie leren. En dan heb ik het echt over pivot point jaren 80, Engeland. En dan pas mogen ze of kunnen ze hun creatieve vleugel spreiden. En dan kunnen ze de creativiteit opzoeken. Maar het fundament is klassiek, want dat is namelijk het stevigste. Dat merk je nu bij ons op scholen ook. Dus ik zie gelukkig dat daar enorme sprongen wordt gemaakt. Maar ik herken me wel in je verhaal. Toch is er een moment geweest, Antoinette, dat... hoe kan ik dat zeggen? Ik herken heel veel mensen die onder de vleugels van Sorbie hebben gezeten. Trevor Sorbie hebben gezeten. Herken ik vaak aan dat ze herkenbaar zijn in de Sorbie-stijl. De DNA van Sorbie. Bij jou heb je op een gegeven moment een hele eigen stijl weten te creëren. Waarbij je niet zegt van, dat is een vertakking of een uitvloeisel van wat Trevor Sorbie aan smaak heeft. Wanneer begon dat bij jou dat je je eigen identiteit wist te creëren? Dus eigenlijk heel duidelijk een smaak neer wist te zetten? Was het ook al zo vroeg?
Yeah, it was quite early, because the way, and it's funny, I've spoken to Trevor about this before. I always say to him, thank you so much, for my career. He said, don't thank me, thank yourself. You have created it. And as I'm older now, I'm looking back, and I promoted that man to death in my life. I actually think he was right. Because what happened, because I had that force, that energy, I wanted to do well. I wanted to, do something in the industry, make a difference. I think, if anything, that's what I wanted to do. I started connecting with a lot of other people. And this is a beautiful thing that Trevor did do for me, for sure. Like, I was so enthusiastic that I was the one who used to find models for everybody. Like, I used to stand outside Topshop in Oxford Circus till midnight every day, looking and asking people if they want a free haircut. Then drag them over to the Sorbie Academy, so then the people that were doing a course there could have a model, and that was me. At the same time, I used to clean the entire academy as well. I mean, I honestly went the hard way. But what he did do, because I was so keen and I was always there, and I didn't have my family there, so work for me was 24 hours a day, he took me on his photo shoots. And I used to then connect with the assistant of the makeup artist and the assistant of the photographer and the assistant of the stylist. And that's how I created my network. And then through that, I started doing very early on my own images, and that then got me nominated for awards and so on and so on. So I think you say, yes, you have your own style. But what I realized my style was, and what I started, was really that hair wasn't just a head and shoulder shot. It was a holistic being. It was, the head is part of the body, so it's all part of one. And that's why I started with a lot of fashion in my hair pictures. If you look at the early 90s, it's very interesting when you go back into British hairdressing imagery. You see headshot, 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 and then I come out with a full length. It's really weird because I took the fashion editorial that I used to do, I used to do editorial hair, and then brought it to the hair industry. And that's how I built my name. And even when I became a creative director at Aveda, I used to do a hairspray ad, and the head was this big in the picture, and then it had a beautiful dress on, and it's like, yeah, but it's part of the whole thing. It's a holistic approach to hair. Because hair is not just, the hair is the fabric of your body, but it's the head is part of the body. And I think a lot of the time, especially in salons, people put a cape around their neck and they see this and it's like, well, what's going on with the rest of it? How does that reflect the personality? I mean, all that kind of stuff. So I feel I did, and that's why they started calling me the holistic hairdresser in London. Yeah, in 2000s, I think they used to call me that. So it was quite interesting.
Je gaf er net al aan, ik weet dat je hairdresser of the year bent geweest. Ik weet dat je heel fanatiek bent in collecties. Je allereerste collectie, dus de allereerste waar je trots op was. Hoe oud was je toen? En hoe ben jij op een gegeven moment... hoe heb jij die ontwikkeling meegemaakt dat je zo'n collectie kon maken waar je trots op was, de allereerste?
Oh, I've done my very first collection in Holland, and I look back now and I was like, ooh, because it was like friends. All I worried was the haircut. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. For me, when I do a collection, the last thing I think about is the hair. I think about everything else, and the hair is like the thing that comes naturally. But I suppose when I started being nominated for awards, I think Newcomer of the Year was my first collection, and that was just a couple of extra pictures we did on a photo shoot for something else. Then I started getting a bit more involved because Trevor, of course, was doing collections because he was always up for British Hairdresser of the Year. So I learned, I was with the right people at the right time. And then because I made all the connections myself with the assistant of the makeup artist and all that stuff, I started doing my own testing, they call it. And that's how my first collections came about. So when I won, what did I win first? Avant-Garde Hairdresser of the Year, 1905. I think that was definitely a absolute pivotal moment in my career.
Ja, ik kan me dat voorstellen. Want dan heb je ook het gevoel dat je door je collega's, want het zijn ook heel veel vakgenoten die daar beslissingen nemen, enorm gewaardeerd wordt. Dus je hebt je fundamentals heb je gehaald en op een gegeven moment heb je je eigen smaak ontwikkeld en dan leg je je smaak en je gedachten leg je vast door middel van een foto en dat wordt gewaardeerd. Ja, dan krijg je een bevestiging voor jezelf. Niet dat je het daarvoor doet, maar het is wel fijn dat je zoiets zegt van nou, kikken.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, it was more about, of course, it's nice to be appreciated, for sure, especially in those early years. And I was kind of the new kid on the scene in the 90s because, here I was this Dutch girl, that's in the beginning didn't speak much English. They took the piss out, but worked really hard. And suddenly they had to take me seriously. So that was kind of interesting. And it took me a very, very long time. I always felt to become British Hairdresser of the Year because I always felt that if I was to win British, then finally I would be recognized as a British hairdresser. And that's exactly what happened, which is weird because when I'm here in America, they still think I'm a British hairdresser, which I suppose I am in a weird kind of way because I've done my training in the UK. I've won most of my hair awards. Well, all my hair awards. No, most of my hair awards in the UK. And when I moved to America, I took a different direction. So it's quite fascinating if you look back. I'm having a little bit of a nostalgic moment here.
Van Trevor Sorbie, hoe lang heb je daar gewerkt? Tot welke leeftijd? Wat zeg je, sorry?
12 years.
12 years. Oké, 12 jaar. En wat was de volgende uitdaging na Trevor Sorbie? Wat deed je toen?
When I left Sorbie?
Ja?
Okay, well, basically, what happened? The reason why I left Sorbie. Let's talk about that because
Yeah.
I won Avant-Garde Hairdresser of the Year. I won London Hairdresser of the Year twice, and I was like, okay, I'm winning all these awards. I started getting headhunted, so I was headhunted by Michael Gordon from Bumble and Bumble,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
he flew me to New York, and New York was a bit dodgy at that time, and so I went to New York, and I'm like, I've already left my country once, leaving England. Yeah, I'm not so sure. So I said no. Then Nico Rojo, though, do you know? You must have heard of Nico Rojo.
Yeah.
He
My
said
name.
yes. He was the one who came off. He said yes. He ended up working for Michael Gordon and Bumble, and he has his own company obviously now. But yeah, so I left Sorbie, and the reason why I left was I got headhunted. And then it was the situation of, I got headhunted by Sebastian. That was it. Because I used to work with Robert Labetta at night. It sounds really crazy. So I used to work at Sorbie. And then Robert used to come over and he goes, can you do some hair for me tonight? I'm like, all right then. We used to go to his house, me and my friend Jenny Jordan, makeup artist, do hair for the Sebastian advertising. And then we used to stay. I know, so that's why Robert and I know each other really well. Anyway, and then then Robert wanted me to work for Sebastian in America, and he said, "Okay, you need to meet Jerry Cosenza." So I fly to America, and I'm like, just the Americans, I'm not so sure. So anyway, but I did get to a stage like, okay, maybe I need to start doing something for me, And then, I was doing a lot of pictures, a lot of editorial at that time, and. At one point I saw a magazine, it had my pictures in it, but not my name on it. Yeah. Dare I say anything else? And I was like, that's it, done. I'm out of here. Yeah. So I left. And we left on good terms, no problem. Mm-hmm. But it was time for me to spread my wings. And Trevor said, you're ready, it's time. So I left. And the beautiful thing that happened was that at that time, Aveda came to the UK, which the founder, Horst Rechelbacher, had a company build Aveda in America, which is now over 40 years old. And he needed someone to be the spokesperson. You know what that's like. Mm-hmm. And they were opening a salon in Harvey Nichols, which was the hottest department store in the world by that stage. Ab was filmed there. All the celebrities were going. I mean, it was fantastic. And they said, what about you? And I'm like, yeah, why not? Let's go. So I did it. Not really knowing much about Aveda, which was really interesting, but I was ready to go. So I ended up opening up Harvey Nichols, like creating a whole new salon, training all the people, hiring all the people. I remember the opening day. I was doing hair in the windows of Harvey Nichols in 1997. It was, yeah. We did the Spice Girls. I mean, everybody. The Queen of Jordan came. I mean, you can't make it up. It was like Celebrityville, and because that's the kind of thing that place attracted. And we did that for a couple of years. And then we realized, well, the rent was so high that we paid at the Harvey Nichols that we were better off going outside of Harvey Nichols and start our own salon because, we did very well. So, and that's how we ended up going to Covent Garden. But, so I left and then I started doing shows on my own. And that was really strange because before I used to do shows for Trevor Sorbie, with Trevor Sorbie, under the Sorbie name. And I'd traveled around the world quite a bit by then, but now it was like Antoinette. It was like, whoa, that's kind of a different feeling.
Jouw naam. Ik snap dat. En de allereerste keer dat jouw naam daar stond, van de Antoinette Beenders show. Had je dan ook echt al jarenlang een idee in je hoofd hoe je dat neer wilde zetten? Had je al zoiets van, nou, als ik het niet onder de naam van Sorbie doe, maar onder mijn naam, dan ga ik dit anders doen en dat anders doen? Of hoe zat dat in elkaar?
I haven't even thought about that, to be honest. I just went for it. With me, it's like I just go for it. You know what I mean? Like if I do something, I just go for it. I'll just jump in the deep end and I'll figure it out. Okay. So I remember my very first show, my own name was in Australia, Hair Expo. Yeah. And, it was lovely because, again, I was still a fairly young person. I didn't really care what people thought. I was like, just do your thing. And I had so much passion for hair. I mean, I ate, slept, and drank hair. And I decided to start backcombing this girl's hair on stage. I just decided it there and then, backcomb, and then sliced through it. And that's how I designed the backslash. That became and now suddenly I started, my name is out there. Now I have a technique that has my name on it. So it was quite interesting, the development.
Ja.
And that's how I put my name down in Australia. Yeah, they still talk about it. It's quite funny.
Antoinette, als je kijkt naar de nieuwe generatie waar je mee te maken hebt, naar nieuwe talenten. En de mensen die hun wens hebben om eigenlijk wat meer studiowerk te doen. We zitten in een andere tijd, social, maar foto blijft foto. Heb jij een advies voor die kappers die richting op willen? Omdat, naar mijn mening, fotowerk is een vak apart. Dat is iets waarvoor je moet trainen, waarvoor je moet leren. Dat is een goede salonkapper wil nog niet zeggen dat je een goede studiokapper bent. Heb jij een aantal tips die je mee kan geven?
Well, first of all, I'd like to share something that I was talking to one of my friends about it, who's a photographer. And we were talking about social, and we thought, to take a nice picture, to do a nice picture on social, you can be lucky. And, if you don't have any experience, and you go, oh, that's a nice picture, great. But if you are a professional photographer, editorial hairdresser, you can't do something nice now and then. You got to be permanently nice and good and strong and innovative and amazing. And, do like 5 shoots in a week, and every shoot needs to be perfect. So that's the difference between doing social and being a professional. And that, like you say, is a job in itself. I mean, to learn to do good editorial hair takes years of experience, in my opinion. I think your heritage is one, but also your experience. And I can't, for anyone who's out there thinking they can walk into a studio and do an amazing head of hair on a picture, hats off to you, because I don't think that's going to happen. And what's really interesting, when you want to then earn a living from being a studio hairdresser, then it's not so much to do with you want to do, it's what the client wants. And then you really need to know your stuff. Like I do a lot of hair for Aveda, for instance, for all the commercials. That's very different hair than I would do for my own shoot or for a salon situation, but you need to know it. And if you want to be a successful editorial hairdresser, you need to know that. You need to be a good classic hairdresser with a ton of ideas and not be it about you. Because here's the fundamental difference between being a salon hairdresser and an editorial hairdresser. When you're in the salon and you have a client sitting in front of you, you have the power. You can do whatever you want practically. I mean, give and take a few things, but you are the most important person for that client at that moment in time. When you're on a photo shoot, you're only the 1/5 most important person, because the photographer is more important than you because he takes the click. The makeup artist, the stylist, the model, they're just as important as you. And it takes a lot for a salon hairdresser to learn that in the beginning stages. So, and then next to that, they need to do great hair that can last and know how a shoot works. I've done many classes on this because try and help the younger ones to okay, actually this is what it takes, guys. Especially last year during the pandemic, I did a lot of free classes online just to kind of take people, how do I do a shoot? How do I do this? And this one I figured it out. But it's interesting. It's interesting to become a studio hairdresser, an editorial hairdresser. And I would say if you want to go that route, you go and surround yourself with editorial hairdressers and become, I'm going to be really naughty, become their bitch for a little bit. You know what I mean? You go and be their assistant. Yeah, but that's what it takes. I've been someone's bitch. And you want to do whatever you do to make it happen.
Maar precies dat, Antoinette, de mentaliteit om datgene te doen en de ballen te hebben om datgene te doen, om naar Engeland te gaan, vanuit Engeland je te ontwikkelen op een manier die vrij heftig is. In de zin van je begint echt letterlijk aan de grond en je bouwt het op, je bouwt jezelf op, je krijgt smaak, je staat achter je smaak, van dit is waar ik voor sta, in het maken, maar ook in je denken. En dan opeens, en dat vind ik heel interessant, dan een heel mooi merk als Aveda, wat ik enorm respecteer in een hele filosofie. Maar je moest concessies doen met jezelf. Je moest je committen aan de brand. En dat lijkt me best moeilijk als je in de geschiedenis juist heel duidelijk je eigen stempel hebt gecreëerd. Van hier sta ik gewoon voor. Dit is wat ik creëer, dit is wat ik maak. En dan in één keer naar een brand toe waarbij je concessies moet doen. Hoe heb jij dat ervaren?
Nou, ik vond geen concessies. No, I'll tell you why. Because the guy who hired me, the president at that time, he adored what I did. So he just said, here's money, go and do your shoot. So here's me. I went everywhere in the world and shot in India, in Nepal. I mean, check out my Instagram. I've been everywhere doing beautiful photo shoots, my taste. So for me, it was just, the cherry on the cake. It was beautiful. I was taking my inspiration. Yeah, I taken my inspiration. He needed my name, to make the brand bigger. And I wanted their support to do what I love. And that's what worked out. In the meantime, I also then ended up learning about store design, copy design, graphic design. So I think it enriched my career, in my opinion. And it's very interesting because there was a thing about mentors. If I look at the mentors in my life, like, of course, it started with Trevor. He taught me how to do hair, right? Yeah. Then I met Horst Rechelbacher, the founder of Aveda. He taught me that there's more than hair in the world. It's about holism. It's about health. It's about, from scalp to soul, from scalp to soul. And then I met Leonard Lauder, who is the son of Mrs. Estee Lauder, who is, Estee Lauder. And he took me under his wings and he taught me about business. Yeah. Because Estee Lauder owns Aveda. Yeah. So they taught me into that big giant company and they taught me about business. And I think I keep saying I'm lucky, but my husband keeps saying, no, you're not lucky. You've worked your ass off. But I've had a very rich...
Ik proef dat ook aan je verhaal. Ik weet niet, je zegt niet ik heb geluk gehad, maar ik merk wel aan een aantal dingen die je vertelt, dat je het zo ervaren hebt. Van ik heb gewoon de mazzel gehad maar mazzel wordt altijd gecreëerd. Mm-hmm. Mazzel komt niet zomaar op je weg. Dat moet je zelf creëren. En dat vind ik het leuke van je, dat je nog steeds in je hoofd zoiets hebt van ik heb gewoon een paar keer mazzel gehad en daarom ben ik hier. Nee, je hebt knoeterhard gewerkt. Waardoor je een aantrekkingskracht genereert tot de juiste mensen. En dat is eigenlijk wat ik heel belangrijk vind om duidelijk te maken. Wanneer je knoeterhard werkt, dan genereer je dus ook mensen die dat waarderen, die dat zien. En dan pas komen die mensen op je weg waar je mee verder kan. Dat is zeg maar het mechanisme.
I also want to say one thing, Mark. As a woman, I think what happens as well, and that's another layer on top, I think a lot, and I think hairdressers in general, we come from the service industry. Yeah, we're used to servicing people. And then you add being a woman on top of that, which, I'm a little bit of a feminist, I have to be honest. But we're very tempted to kind of bow down quickly as women. Mm-hmm. And then as hairdressing women, we tend to do that even more so. So it takes a lot. And then when I went to London, in Holland, people are a little bit more confident. In England, no way. You can't be confident in England because they won't have it. It's all about being kind of like, a little bit not so confident, to be honest. And it's very fascinating because I think in that respect, I had to really learn that, okay, you know what? I actually have done something now and I don't have to constantly prove myself anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm 55 years old now. Enjoy it and I need to learn how to enjoy it. Let me put it that way. I don't have to prove myself. I had this thing forever. I need to prove myself. I need to prove myself. I need to prove myself. It's like, you know what? Actually, what I do now, I quite like what I'm doing now. And I'm going to enjoy it. And it's funny because now I'm meeting and I'm doing the things that I've always wanted to do. Because before I always thought I wasn't good enough. Which is a bit of a psychological, thing. But I always thought, am I good enough? Am I good enough? And that feeling, am I good enough, pushed me to do what I do today. Yeah. So, and when I now get feedback from classes or things that I do, and people really enjoy it, I go, okay, you know what? I think I was okay, actually.
Nee, zeker. Zeker, je zit bij een ontiegelijk mooi bedrijf die ook verrassend blijft, dus niet stil blijft staan. Dat is vanuit mijn opinie, dat ik elke keer toch andere dingen zie met de DNA van het bedrijf. En dat is iets waardoor het een hart krijgt. Dan gaat iets echt leven. En het heeft dan ook in het vooruitzicht een langer tijd te gaan. Je ziet ook bedrijven die vasthouden aan één ding. En daar mag je niet buiten de kaders gaan. En Aveda vind ik zowel maatschappelijk als menselijk, als met ons vak, een hele mooie blend maken. Bewustzijn van is belangrijk. Maar ze gaan ook met de tijd mee. Ze gaan ook met de behoeftes mee die binnen het kappersvak ontstaan is. Ik ben wel heel erg nieuwsgierig wat nog op jouw bucketlist staat. Waar je kunt zeggen van nou, dat zou ik nog een keertje willen doen. Of dat zou ik nog een keer willen doen. Daar ben ik nieuwsgierig naar.
You know, I don't have one. And I'll tell you why. Because I never had one. I never had a bucket list. My bucket list now is like I want to go to Vietnam. You know what I mean? But it's not in my career because I've never really... I just went for it. I mean, I never had like, oh, I have to win this or I have to win this. I just entered and see what happened. I never had a bucket list. I still don't today. So it will be what it will be. But what I do is I look at stuff and I'll go, yeah, I want to do that. So my next bucket list, I have shorter term bucket lists. Like I'm doing a really big show in September. Well, that has to be amazing. You know what I mean? And I'm like working like a maniac to make that happen right now. And make it super exciting. And as my responsibility to the Aveda network, it's a big Aveda show. So as my responsibility to the network, I want them to feel that they can be proud of who they're with. That is my responsibility. And that's why I will, so it's changed a little bit. It's not about me anymore. It's more about them. And I that gets me going. I mean, to be honest, how many more awards do you need? Do you know what I mean?
Nee, helemaal. Maar dat is het hoogst haalbare is iemand anders beter maken als dat je zelf bent. Of het overdragen van kennis. Dat is het hoogst haalbare in ons vak. En als je dat kan doen...
I love to inspire people. Yeah. Like how I was inspired. I love it when people say, oh my God, you've inspired me. That is the biggest compliment ever. Yeah. Biggest. Yeah. Because then I've given them that little bit of passion that I have to them to take that further. Because one person can only do so much. But if you can get a little bit like different people and then spread it out, makes the world a better place, right?
Ja, absoluut. Ja, mooi man om te horen dat je op die manier er nog steeds in staat. Want in feite is de gedachte die je nu omschrijft dezelfde gedachte als waarmee je begonnen bent. Van fuck it, ik ga naar Londen toe, ik wil dat doen. En ik zie morgen wel wat de morgen brengt. En daarop anticiperen.
Mark, I tell you what did that to me. I remember the day it happened. The pandemic. That's what did that back to me. Because I became very calculated and this, that, and everything. Yeah. And then the pandemic hit and I'm like, oh shit, this has changed. Oh shit, this has changed. The first week the pandemic was out, I was crying my eyes out. You know why? I wasn't allowed to go to work. I couldn't do anything. I don't work behind the chair every day. So I work in an office with people and I have a creative office. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. What am I going to do? So it forced me to then become more innovative in what I did. Hence, I start hitting social media really hard. Hence, and I don't know if you're aware, but I started doing a lot of interviews on my Instagram. I don't know if you're aware of that. And I thought, what do I have as a person that I can share with the rest of the world from my basement? And that's what I did. And that's kind of given me a new leash of life again. It's really weird. It's really strange. And I'm really enjoying it. So I started then doing interviews for Aveda Instagram and then for my Instagram. And I got like 30 Instagrams on this phone. That's what I'm saying. My precious thing is my phone. I do everything on my phone.
Ja, ik begrijp het heel goed. En het mooie is, ik kan me daar ook heel erg goed mee identificeren. Want op het moment dat dingen stilstaan, sta je ook stil bij dingen. Ja. En dat geeft verandering. En vanuit mijn positie binnen Kinky, ik werk ook vanuit idealisme. In de zin van, je wil op een gegeven moment je werk goed uitvoeren in een omgeving waar je je lekker bij voelt, met de mensen waarmee je verder kan. En dan heb je het over teams. Dan ben je niet meer als individu belangrijk, maar juist het team is belangrijk. En dat team wordt groter, dus je moet ook zorgen dat overal iedereen zich kan ontwikkelen. En als ik naar jouw verhaal luister, dan zet je op nummer 1 inspiratie. Maar het ontvangen van inspiratie is het goud van het kappersvak. En je ziet op social heel veel gebeuren, maar het begint heel vaak op elkaar te lijken. Maar juist het luisteren, het zien naar ervaringen van mensen, vind ik meestal het meest inspirerende. Vandaar dat we ook deze opzet hebben gedaan zoals we die nu doen. En ik vind het ook leuk om te horen dat jij ook fanatiek met die interviews bezig bent. Want over 20 jaar kan iemand dat naluisteren en daar dingen uithalen. Dat is namelijk tijdloos. Een ervaring van iemand, wel of niet succesvol, om daarna te kunnen luisteren, rustig, dat is goud. Dat is op dit moment, denk ik, enorm belangrijk. En dat hebben we gekregen door iets wat een ellende is, wat corona heet. Dus ik kan me heel goed identificeren met je verhaal.
Yeah, for me, one of my most favorite things, my most passionate thing, is creating images, right? Like, I love creating images, and now I'm really getting into moving images, video. Like, that's my next big giant thing. And it's also the future, by the way. But it's the same. The reason why I love doing images so much, because it's a moment in time you can never get back. So the click of that camera, that split second where everything has to be perfect, where everything has to be amazing. And if you then get an amazing picture, which is purely energy-led, and I can talk to you about it in a sec, that moment will never go away and you'll have it forever. And it's also, when I look back at my old collections, I can tell exactly where I was in my head. Oh, I must have felt great there, and I was into that, or I was into that, or I was into that. It's really interesting, and I'm sure you have the same thing. But it's the same with these interviews. It's a moment in time you will never get back.
No,
because, we're not here on the earth forever.
No.
But one thing I wanted to share with you, because it is my passion, is the moment in time on imagery. What makes a good picture? Because I'm a Virgo, so I'm anal as well. So to me, everything has to be perfect, right? And I figured out in the 40 years of my career that what makes a good picture is the energy that goes into the photograph, into that moment of time. And it's not just your energy as a hairdresser, it's the model, it's the photographer, it's the stylist, it's the makeup artist.
Yeah.
And when all that energy comes together in one, it's like a molecule, and it just pops out on this photo. That's what is the magic. That's what makes me wake up every day, because I love that. Now I'm into moving image. Moving image is easier than still image, because I'm speaking to a Dutch guy. I can't say his name yet, but he's incredible. And I've just started working with him. He's insanely talented and insanely enthusiastic. And talk about that passion we were talking about when I was this kid, it's him all the way. And we were talking about that. And he said, he comes from film school. And he said, film is easier because it's movement. Yeah. So it's more forgiving. He said, but he's taking his inspiration from still photography, because still photography is much harder than it is film. So I find it very fascinating. I love all that kind of psychology around it. So yeah, I thought I'd share that with you.
Kan ik me heel goed voorstellen. Ik vind dit een mooi gesprek, maar we moeten er een einde aan breien.
We can speak for hours.
Oh, absoluut. En je moet niet ophangen, want ik wil je daarna nog een paar dingetjes vragen. Maar ik wil eigenlijk afronden met je te vragen om de mensen die kijken, die al wat langer in het kappersvak zitten, die al eigenlijk, laten we zeggen, mensen tussen de 10 en 20 jaar lang al in het vak zitten, om die eens mee te geven hoe ze met hun vak een vooruitgang kunnen boeken. Snap je mijn vraag?
Yeah, I understand. But it depends what they want it to be. So it's called, I believe in reverse engineering. And what that means is set a goal and then you work back. So say if you want, I don't know, this is salon hairdressers are watching, right?
Yeah.
So I want to have a very successful business, making it up. Okay, first of all, what's your idea of success? Is it money or is it like fulfillment? Number one. Because if it's money, it's a very different route than when it's fulfillment. So let's be honest about it. Yeah. So if it's money, then say, okay, I want 5 million here. How do I get there? It's pretty basic. If it's fulfillment, then what makes me tick? What makes me wake up in the morning and then do more of that? So I think you can all do whatever you want to do, but you got to have a goal and you got to be willing and wanting it a little bit more than anyone else to get there. It's pretty basic. But what you can't expect is to kind of roll out of bed in the morning, go partying all night every day. Make sure you finish at 5 o'clock. Make sure, that's not a career. That's a hobby. Me and my friends, I call it hairdresser, hobby hairdressers. They do it because they like it, but fine. And that's fine. That's their prerogative. But if you're serious about it, it's more than 9 to 5.
Ja.
And it's,
ik vind het,
maybe you don't have a holiday for 5 years. Maybe you don't come home till 11 o'clock at night.
Nee.
I mean, unheard of. When I said to my mom the other day, I said, oh yeah, well, I said, I'm on holiday, but I just got to take this call. And she goes, you're on holiday. I'm like, yeah, and? That's not how it works, No. It's not how it works. So you got to be willing to put in the effort, And one of the things that I always say, first of all, 2 tips. Never say no to anything. Number 1, never say no. If someone asks you to do something, never say no, because you never know what it leads on to. And the other thing is, which Trevor taught me, what you put in it will always come back. So the energy, the passion, the drive, the hours, whatever you put into something, it will always come back. It might not be straight away, but it will come back.
Super. Ik ga met deze mooie woorden afsluiten. Antoinette, hartelijk dank. Ik vond het superleuk om naar je te luisteren. Ik ga zeer zeker op je Instagram jouw interviews nalopen. Ik ben ontiegelijk nieuwsgierig. En ik wil iedereen bedanken voor het kijken. Groeten.
Oké, bedankt. En just final words in Dutch. Als je mijn werk wil zien, check out Instagram @Antoinette Beenders. Yeah? Be lovely. And I run it myself, so I DM and everything. So if you want to join me, join me. Join the revolution. Cool. Join the movement. All right. Thank you so much, Mark. It's lovely talking to you. Take care.